Hello and welcome back to Med School Mama. I hope everyone's had a really lovely week. Sun's been shining a little bit, also been raining a little bit, but we can't complain. So I am shooting in landscape mode today, as advised by a couple of friends and family members. Thank you. So I was in portrait last week and I just found that it was like cutting it like black either side. When I was on my laptop anyway. I think it was okay on my phone. But anyway, we'll give it a go. Quite happy with the mic as well. I've clipped it on a bit different to try and keep it more upright because it was sort of falling forward before. So anyway, hopefully it's working. I might do a bit of this as well. I've noticed people do that, so will I. Anyway, so I thought I would talk today because I'm not at med school at the moment. We are on our summer break. So I thought I would talk today about a bit about how I got here. Why did I choose med school later in life and what was I doing before? As these are questions that I do get asked. So thought, yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Having a bit of a career change a bit later in life. And again, if anyone's doing similar, I would love to hear from you if you're doing medicine later, or if you are just having any kind of career change, really. I think it's always quite interesting, isn't it? Anyway, let's crack on. So I did my A levels when I was, 16? And I'd done biology, but I hadn't actually done chemistry, which you need to do medicine. So what I actually found you can do is a access to medicine course. And there are quite a few different courses you can do, all different like access to higher education. For anyone who is maybe thinking of a career change, but you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start. Like, do I have to do my A levels again? Do I have to do this again? There are these access courses. Also, foundation years at uni, I think you can possibly do, or gateway to medicine is something they do at Bristol, actually. I'm not sure what the kind of conditions are to get on, but I know it exists. So there are pathways into things later in life, thankfully. Anyway, so I did this access to medicine course, but this course I actually had applied for when I was about 21, I think. But they actually liked to take people with a bit more kind of life experience, and maybe more relevant work experience. So at my early 20s, when I was thinking about applying the first time, I had a bit of work experience in hospital, just a week kind of shadowing people, which was actually so valuable and such a cool experience. I was lucky enough, so my uncle actually is a he's hung it all up now, but he was an orthopedic surgeon. And so I was able to go into hospital with him, and he got me into all different departments. So I saw like radiology, I was in A&E. God, it was a long time ago now, but I got to see quite a few cool things. So I was really, really lucky to do that. Really cool experience. And I also did a bit of care work in a care home. So that was with people who had like dementia and Alzheimer's. So that was a really challenging job, but good experience. And I also did some first aid training with the Red Cross. So I was doing what I could to kind of build up my resume a bit towards medicine. Anyway, so I was actually unsuccessful first time round applying for this access to medicine course. And in that process, in that time of my life, I was like, well, if I don't get on, I'll move to Australia. And I did ask for feedback, the reason being that I was a bit too young for the course. They like to take people kind of, I think, 24 and up, and they like to take people with, as I say, more experience. Anyway, so didn't get on, moved to Australia. In In Australia, did I do anything medical related? No, I did not. I ended up, I think I had that in mind. I did think I would, and I did apply for a few kind of more medical care roles, but was unsuccessful, I suppose. So I ended up doing whatever jobs just to kind of live. So I ended up working as something called a smoko chick. So in Australia, if you've been, you may have heard people refer to breaks as like a smoko break or a smoko, particularly, I suppose, on like job sites. So, Australia, as you know, is huge and there's a lot of kind of housing developments coming up. So, there was a lot of like tradies. Um, and there are these things called smoko trucks and smoko chicks. So these are little, I'll put a picture up, these little food trucks. And we worked for a company, Rainbow Express, it was called at the time. I don't know what it would be now. But they were all like different colorful trucks. They tended to hire like young ladies. I think because obviously it's tradie sites, the boys, they're going to want to buy off the nice young ladies. And it was also because a lot of these sites were like kind of out in the sticks. So it was hard for them in whatever their 20-minute break to get to a shop and then get back, if you know what I mean. So we came to them in our little trucks, come up, beep, beep. You hop out, you open the side of the truck, and there's like a whole kind of like shelves with like sandwiches. We had even like fried, like cooked food, pies, a whole like thing full of ice and like drinks. So it was like really random. I never even knew it existed. I have actually seen a couple in England since being back, but it's just not really as common, I suppose. But yeah, so that was the job I worked for quite a lot of Australia, to be honest. Um, and I mostly lived in on the Gold Coast. If anyone's heard of that, I absolutely had not heard of it. So I actually flew into Brisbane, went down to Sydney. I was there for a couple of months in hostels and things. Then I came to the Gold Coast. I had like a salesy job for a bit, like you know those people in the streets with a clipboard and oh, can I just stop you there? Like, so I've done it all. So I did that for a bit. And then I actually moved to the outback. I was working for a family as an au pair, which was actually super cool. Like it was very now, to be honest, very cowboy. Um, so yeah, it was kind of cowboy farmer life. Like I would be I remember going quad biking and like herding cattle on quad bike. And the company, the family I worked for, so I was actually like an au pair for them, looking after 4 kids. So I've had kid experience at least. um, but they actually had an aerial spraying business, so they're like spraying crops. Um, and one time I actually herded cattle in like their little helicopter thing. I remember shooting a gun, not shooting anything alive, but just like a tree stump or something. But it was very like cowboy, very out there. I loved it. It was a really, really cool, like outback Aussie adventure. And then, yeah, like I say, most of the time I was actually in a place called the Gold Coast, which was on the coast. And it's got all like skyscrapers. And you might have heard of like Surfers Paradise. That's where I lived for a while. Down the road, you've got a place, Byron Bay, which is very kind of hippie, like musicy sort of scene. So it was a really cool place to be. And you had the beach there, obviously. And then you could go like 40 minutes inland to, there's like Mount Tamborine, like this big mountain, and there's like rainforesty, like waterfalls. So it was like a pretty magical place to live, to be honest. So yeah, that's where I lived. Mostly smoko chicken, bit of waitressing, so nothing medical at all, to be honest. I ended up staying there about 4 years, then coming home to England. And I actually got someone contacted me who was a friend of mine who I met at a salon years ago when I used to work there. Anyway, so he now owned a physiotherapy clinic, and he asked if I wanted to have a job as like a receptionist. He heard I was back and thought, yeah, I'd be good for that position, I guess. So I ended up working at this physiotherapy clinic. And I think from there, so it had like personal training. We had like a personal training gym downstairs, reformer Pilates, yoga, sports massage, and obviously physiotherapy. So I was kind of in that health environment, which obviously I'd had an interest in before, having applied to medicine and working in like care. And I ended up training in personal training myself. I then, so this is another little like sub chapter within it all. A guy I knew from Australia, he actually came over to England, and we ended up in a relationship. And I went back to Australia for a few months, and then that didn't work out. Came back home. A couple of weeks later, it was the world pandemic. So I remember like towards the end of that Oz chapter, there were kind of whispers of coronavirus, and so it was very like memes on the internet. Like it wasn't it kind of seemed like it wasn't going to be as big as it was, but obviously, as we know, it was a very serious kind of a global pandemic. So anyway, I ended up back home again shortly before that. And I think obviously then being in a lockdown, it kind of forced me to settle a bit more in England. I think I always had one foot out the door. So yeah, back in England, and actually once again the physio clinic were like, want a job? Like once things had opened up again. So I ended up working at the physio clinic again, just on the reception. And did I say I trained in personal training? So yeah, I did personal training before I went back to Oz. And then when I came back again, and I was teaching some group classes in the pandemic as well, which obviously turned online as we are now. So I was doing online group classes with people. Then I ended up training in massage because I thought that was something that went quite well with the personal training. So, and I think what kind of sparked my sort of ideas to do medicine again was that when you're doing massage, you're doing consultations with people. So you're kind of sat, how are you? How's it going? Like, how can I help? And they're telling you about pains, and people can be really open, and maybe they really want help with these things. They might have like quite a chronic pain condition, ongoing back problems, sciatica, things like that. And I could help to some extent, like with the massage treatments and helping people with exercise and fitness programs. But I really wanted to be able to do more to help these people. So it popped back into my head, this access to medicine, and I ended up applying for that again. And to my surprise, I was successful. So that was, honestly, I was just in disbelief that I'd got on. I don't know why. I think because I'd spent so much time kind of floundering about in Australia and things. I just didn't really, to end up on a pathway that was kind of leading somewhere was really like, I felt so grateful to kind of have more direction towards something, and something I felt prepared to really work hard at. And I really think that if I had got on when I was in my early 20s, I don't know if I kind of had the discipline and the drive. Maybe I would have done, but I don't know. But I'm actually happy that I did have all this time and experience in Australia. The 20s were fun. So yeah, doing it later in life, I think you're just a bit more mature, a bit more driven. So here we are. And with Bristol, I've got to say I was quite reluctant to move to another city. I think after being overseas and then you know, you've got your friends back in your hometown. I was kind of comfy there. And I know how hard it is to kind of leave one lot of people. You know, I've left Seaford lot over to Gold Coast, then Gold Coast, and you know, you're always leaving people behind. So I kind of wanted to stick around Brighton and Seaford sort of area, but ended up getting into Bristol, and it is such an amazing uni. And I'm actually really happy that I did end up here. Um, it's nice to get out your comfort zone a bit, isn't it? I don't know if you've noticed that about me. But yeah, I actually really am happy. And the course as well, I will say this just because I think I loved like science and medicine, and I'm really grateful I'm doing it now. But one thing I will say with Bristol is they have such a like opportunity for you to also express your creative side, which I did not expect. I thought it was just going to be science, 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 like. But we do projects that we have our, I think I mentioned on my last video, our student choice project. And I'm doing media with medicine, and there were things like yoga and like holistic health. So it's a bit more, I think there was something about literature, like doing maybe even like plays and or writing in medicine. Anyway, there's lots of options, and we have done stuff like creative projects where people, you know, maybe some people are so good at art, like, and they've done like sculptures or like amazing paintings, or they're a musician and they've written a song about an experience they've had in kind of clinical contact. So there's so much kind of opportunity to express those other sides of like your personality and your skill set. So really rate Bristol for that. I swear they're not paying me. I know I'm wearing their shirt as well. I just love, oh, I lost my microphone. I just love baggy things right now, as you can imagine. Comfort is key for a pregnant lady. So that's just a bit about how I got here. I think as well, I did mention on my last video, one thing that maybe put me off going into medicine sooner as well was the thoughts of babies and yeah, having, you know, meeting someone and having kids. I thought, well, how's that going to work with medicine? We're finding out. So that was another reason I think I did put it off a bit. But yeah, here we are now, and I'm really thankful that this is where I've ended up. I'm loving being pregnant. I know it's going to be a challenge. But yeah, I'm really so happy to be on this path, and so happy kind of everything. So yeah. Okay, so I thought just to sort of like wrap up on this topic, I guess like my point is that it is possible to sort of change what you're doing a bit later in life, and you don't necessarily have to have been like real focused on one thing. I think there's a lot of pressure, isn't there, to know what you want to do and to be working towards that. But I think there is so much opportunity now to change careers like completely, and find your path for yourself. And I guess, like I say, it wasn't kind of a linear, okay, I know that I'm doing this, I'm going to work towards this and that. It kind of meandered. I kind of, it came out of the healthcare, traveling, not really thinking about it, and then being brought back into that environment. Yeah, you just never know what life's going to bring you, and I think you just got to go with the flow a bit. Obviously, if you know what you want to do, go for that. But I was definitely someone who didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm grateful that I have eventually found my direction. Because I will say, I think especially when I came back from Australia the first time, I was like it was quite depressing. I think you get to an age, if you haven't really like figured out what you're doing with your life. So I remember being about maybe 26, 27, and friends back home, I was still in Australia, and friends were getting married, having babies, you know, they're buying houses. And I was still in that kind of Peter Pan, not quite growing up, living in Australia. having a good time phase. So to have been able to kind of slowly find my path, like I'm really grateful for that. And it's not easy, and I really feel for other people who aren't quite sure. But yeah, I'm an example, I guess, of someone who has been able, like, there are so many options, and you can, something that you might thought was kind of off the cards for you, like it is definitely on the cards for you. So yeah, I hope that helps. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I will check back next Sunday. Thank you for watching my videos. Anyone in similar situations, going through a career change or has had a career change, anyone who is pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant, anyone in medicine, mature students, whatever it is, or just like tips on my video making skills or lack thereof. Or I don't know how to sound. I keep forgetting I even have a mic on. So yeah, any tips with sound or video making, I am very open to those. So yeah, like and subscribe. Med School Mama, thank you for being here. And bye.
Running down to the